Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for Monday, October the 11th. First thing on the agenda this evening is a public hearing. The caption for the public hearing is on a request to rezone 702 South Anderson Street from General Commercial District C2 to Neighborhood Commercial District C3. Is there anyone who would like to speak in the public hearing regarding the rezoning? If not, we will close the public hearing and move to the regular meeting. I'll ask the city recorder, Miss Rosemary, to call the roll for the Alderman.
Yes. Mayor Noes.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Blanks. Alderperson Allmacher.
Here.
Berry. Blackwell.
Here.
Dunn. McGee.
Here.
That's 5 present.
We have a quorum. This time I'd like to ask Reverend Everett Smith, if he would, to please come forward and lead us in the invocation, and then to first all stand as he continues to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Reverend Smith.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the privilege that we have to know you as our personal Savior, to know that we always have the guidance and direction of the Holy Spirit over our lives. We thank you for the city of Tullahoma and the privilege to live here in this great city. We thank you for this board tonight, and we pray for your Holy Spirit to guide each member. We know that sometimes in board meetings, personalities and personal conflicts can affect our judgment, but we pray that everyone would be open-minded and do what's best for the city, not one individual, but for the entire city. Guide the mayor as he conducts this meeting and give him guidance. And we thank you tonight for our police department that's represented. We pray for their safety. We pray for the safety of our firemen. Every time they get a phone call, they never know what danger they're going to be in. We pray you'd watch over them. Mr. Ellis from the hospital here tonight, we pray for our medical people here in Tullahoma, that you would watch over them and guide them, keep them safe, and all of us safe from the virus. And we just pray that you would help us, that we all just do the very best that we can to live for you and be the best person that we can possibly be. May thy blessings be upon us tonight, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Smith. Tonight, as we look around the dais here, we see a new face. This new face is our honorary alderman for this evening. We're delighted to have Ms. Katie Ellis as our honorary alderman. I want to just tell you a little bit about Ms. Ellis from her bio that I have with me. And I will say a little bit because it could take quite a long time to go through much of it. Her work experience is centered around, she's done a lot of work as a lifeguard. She's worked at Lakewood Country Club and as our lifeguard at Splash Island as well, D.W. Wilson. Her skills include AutoCAD software programming, lifeguard certification, college cloud certification, Google Cloud certification, first aid certification. So it comes in handy if you need someone with those kind of skills. Awards and accomplishments include Scholar Athlete of the Year for THS Soccer, the Mayor's Youth Council. She's the president of the Mayor's Youth Council, so we have 2 mayors here tonight. The National Honor Society. She's the vice president and service chair, senior class secretary. Lipscomb University Summer Scholar. So she's getting some of that college work out of the way. So it goes on. So at this time, let me present Katie with honorary alderman certificate. Katie, if you come to the podium, to the flag, I'll present this to you. 2021. A little later on, as we do our Alderman reports, we'll give you an opportunity to talk about some things that are going on in your world around school. So good to have you with us tonight. Congratulations on being selected as honorary Alderman.
Thank you.
For proclamations and awards this evening, we have a very special proclamation that I would like to do. This is to proclaim and celebrate Babies Week. And this is the first time I recall doing this, but it's an honor to do it. So let me just read the proclamation and you'll get the gist of what this is all about. Whereas the Association of Infant Mental Health in Tennessee, that's AIMHITN, is dedicated to the improvement and celebration of healthy social and emotional development in babies and recognizes the value of investing time, resources, and awareness into infants, toddlers, and families for the future of our wonderful state. And whereas 80,000 babies are born every year in Tennessee, and whereas to guarantee a bright future for Tennessee and its families, we must ensure that all children are given the very best start possible, and that begins with early relational health. And whereas scientific research points to the earliest years of life as the most critical for social and emotional development, forming the brain connections that build the architecture for future growth. And whereas the most crucial ingredients in laying a healthy foundation is caring, nurturing relationships with parents and caregivers, teachers, professionals, and the community as a whole. And whereas there can be a celebration of diversity with outcomes that are equitable and inclusive for all Tennessee babies, providing a sense of belonging for future generations. And whereas, although through international community outreach, networking, education, intervention, and social awareness, babies and their families and those that support them throughout Tennessee are celebrated. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Ray Norris, Mayor of Tullahoma, City of Tullahoma, Tennessee, on behalf of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, do hereby proclaim October the 18th through the 22nd as 2021 as Celebrate Babies Week in Tullahoma, and encourage all citizens to recognize the vision of AIMHITN and the celebration of babies. Ray Norris, Mayor. Ms. Laura Stone, if you'd please come forward, I'd like to present this to you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to do this proclamation and stuff. Thank you, and with that, do you have a motion or anything that you'd like to say about this proclamation?
Okay, it's a very good word. And we have representatives from a lot of organizations supporting babies. I just do want to say I'm very proud of Coffee County, all the community resources, nonprofits, and support agencies that just really gather around all the babies that are, hundreds of babies that are born in this county every year. And that's why I just ask everybody be intentional to support all of those services and think about the babies related to all of the work that you do. So thank you.
Would you care to introduce any of your friends that are with you tonight?
I've got Teresa Winnett from Child Development Center. They do early intervention services with all of our babies. And I've got my photographer, Laurie, here. Leslie is part of Center Stone, and she's also with the co-chair of Imagination Library Program, and a couple more Imagination Library board members here, Sarah Haley and Rosemary Crabtree.
Thank you for the wonderful work you do. At this time, we will entertain any comments from citizens. If there's any citizen care to address the board, you'll be given 2 minutes if you'd care to address the board. Anyone care to speak? Come forward, state your name and address, please.
Patel, US 340 Riley Avenue, Smithfield, Tennessee.
Dear respected board members, I'm here today to make my case for opportunity of equality. Being involved in the liquor business for the past 2 years as a manager, I had familiarized myself with the process of applying for a new liquor license. Knowing the limit of the population is what triggers a new license. From the census data, I had been calling the city office religiously for the past 6 months to see if the data was in and if there's a new liquor license and if the application process has started. I remember calling the office, the city office last week of August, asking if the information was available and was told no such announcement was made. I was also told by one of the front desk ladies that they weren't accepting any applications currently. I also called again in mid-September and wasn't given a clear answer on the process, as it seemed like they didn't have the right information, so they didn't want to give any information. When I came in personally to the office a couple of days later, they told me that it was too late and that they weren't accepting any applications. After talking to Ms. Rosemary, she told me that when the first application was turned in, they weren't aware that the process had started, but that is what triggered the process. She also told me that the city administration decided on a whim to stop taking applications. So today I asked the board if it is fair that such a big decision of issuing a new liquor license in Tullahoma be made on a whim. If it is also fair that the information provided to the right people within the city office be necessary for opportunity of equality. Talking to Senator Janice Bowling today with Ms. Rosemary about the issue, she expressed that what happened didn't seem like a fair process, not only for me, but for the community. She said that because of the misinformation and disinformation, the city should postpone making the decision. The city should make a public announcement of taking more application and give others the chance to apply for such a big opportunity. She also noted that the city broke the first come, first serve rule, taking the time to establish new rules and clarifying them to citizens would constitute of a fair process. Thank you for all the board members for giving me the time and the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
What was your name?
My name is Piyush Patel, Piyush.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? With that, we'll move on to the reports from Alderman. Before we go into the reports from Alderman, let me ask the Alderman to make a comment. First, I'll make a comment. Our reports have gotten lengthy. And if you would, please restrict your comments from the Alderman to the activities that relate to your assignments as Aldermen, to the city business, if you will. And if you have other things that you'd like to include in your report, you might submit them in writing, and we'll include them in an attachment to that goes out in the packets that go out. So with that, we'll start with Ms. Blackwell.
Thank you. For the sake of brevity as well, I want to just give you guys an update that there have been some movements with the downtown that I will actually like to share with the downtown businesses before bringing all in such a public forum too, so that they are aware of what is going on, and hopefully some updates and improvements that we can hopefully move forward with, fingers crossed. Mayor's Youth Council has started. And so their second meeting, or third meeting will be tomorrow night. So we're excited to have them on board, have our sitting Mayor's Youth Mayor with us today. Board of Education, we haven't met in the past couple weeks, but we will be coming up soon. So there has not been a meeting for that. But as you all know, there is a big request and a fantastic request from our Board of Education on our agenda tonight. And finally, just a quick thing about Jefferson Street Park that we are having on October 30th, the dedication at 1 p.m. For the basketball courts to be dedicated to Nan Iva and Tennyson Holmes. So I will be reaching out to some of you regarding what time you're speaking and that type of thing and all that stuff. And so hopefully you will be able to be available for that day.
Okay, thank you for your
That's
report. Alderman McGee.
Okay, my report is really going to be short. My meetings, the boards that you've appointed me to, the Industrial Board of Coffee County and Tullahoma Housing Authority, we don't meet until next week. So I don't have anything to report as far as the boards that I'm the liaison on. But I would like to say that I am working with Claude Morris, who is our local chair for the Reefs Across America. We are planning the first ceremony to be held at Evergreen Cemetery on December the 18th at 11 o'clock a.m. And lastly, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and this is something personal for me as I'm a 10-year survivor. So I would just ask that everyone keep those who have fought and those who continue to fight in your thoughts and prayers. And that's it. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Mayor Reynolds.
Alderman Berry.
Planning Commission, I believe, meets next week. Is that the third Monday? I sit on the Tullahoma Area Economic Development, which is also a part of by default, we're on a couple other committees. One of them is the Special Education and Housing. I don't think that's the full name. But there was an excellent public meeting last week on a potential project with community preservation partners at Tullahoma Village. They came and spoke. They had their attorney as well as two of the representatives from there who came and spoke kind of in more detail about what they were looking to do and how they were going to invest in that property there. And it's pretty exciting. I spent the time before that kind of reaching out to other properties that they had worked with to kind of satisfy my own curiosities. And I think that it will be great for that community there. We've all been there, I believe, and some of what's happening there I think is criminal for people to live in the conditions that they're having to live in. So that is exciting. I'm on the sports council as well. I don't have anything to update there. We're doing some tournaments. Working on a neat project down at Cascade. More to come on that. That's
Very
it.
good. Thank you, Alderman Allmacher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I sit on the Tourism Council, so part of my small business shout out I think is relevant to the committees that I sit on, as tourism is obviously a #1 driving factor in how our economy does here in Tullahoma. So with that said, this week's small business shout out goes to Nails by Nicole. Nicole's Hair and Nail Studio, 728 Jackson Street, it's next to the Little Caesars. She has a phone number of 931-307-5253, and I've heard it's the best nails and eyebrows in town. So ladies, if you need something done, go check her out. Glad to see that we're doing the Celebrate Babies Week. I think that's really awesome. I'm obviously a pro-life Tennessee Right to Life advocate, and a lot of those stats are similar stats that we use in a lot of our communications to the public. I also sit on the Coffee County Consolidated Communication Board, which is, i.e., one of the 911 boards here that we have in the county, and we actually haven't, our last meeting got canceled, and so our next meeting is October the 20th at 6 p.m. there in Manchester at the 911 center. So if anybody's interested in attending, that is an open public meeting. We've had a few emails just to inform the public about this T-Dot widening, and I thought it was important that we pointed out that there's been really no movement by the state on that yet, but this coming down, what's this street?
Wilson.
Thank you, Wilson Avenue. We don't have a lot of the details on that. However, there have been a few business owners that have reached out and had some concerns. I want to continue to encourage people that if you have concerns, reach out. We can share those with the state, but that's not necessarily something that we as a board have a say-so on at this point. So just want to, I've had a couple of different questions about that. So continue to tell us your concerns and we'll pass those along, and we'll try to be an advocate, obviously, for our business owners and our citizens here as to their wishes and their needs. Let's see. Also, I spoke to this a few weeks ago. I would like to see on the agenda in an upcoming meeting, Mayor, about, it's almost time for us to do it again, about Ms. Moody's evaluation. I think that we need to stay on top of that, and we still haven't, in an open meeting, discussed her evaluation from last year. And it's almost that time to be doing that again, and those do have to be discussed according to MTAS in an open meeting, and we need to make sure that we're evaluating all of our employees as well as our city administrator and the job that she's doing. That's all I have today, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And around the table is our visiting honorary alderman, Mayor's Youth Council Mayor. Ms. Ellis, why don't you tell us what's going on in your world around high school?
Thank you for having me. I'm Katie Ellis. I'm a senior at the high school, and next year I plan to go to college and pursue a 4-year degree with a major in environmental science and a minor in English literature. I also plan to develop a career in conservation biology. We have lots of exciting events going on at the high school this semester, so I thought I'd share some of them with you. Last month, our National Honor Society chapter conducted a campus cleanup where we got rid of a lot of the trash and the ditches around our school. Our football team is doing very well. They have 7 wins this year and 0 losses, and we celebrated homecoming a couple weeks ago. So our school was able to enjoy the Friday night game, and we also had a week full of dress-up days where we got to promote school spirit. Our theater program has been preparing for their first production of the year. They'll be putting on a play called 12 Angry Jurors. Something that our students have been really excited about this year is pause, and every day the high school has a 45-minute activity period, and during this time students get to decide on a teacher-run pause session to attend. And during this time we have a lot of club meetings for things like National Honor Society, Future Business Leaders of America, and our Math and English Honor Societies. We're also excited to participate in less traditionally academic opportunities like learning how to change a tire or learning how to play chess. And then we have our Mayor's Youth Council going on right now, and we're a group of students that meet 2 days out of the month to discuss service opportunities in our community. Tomorrow we'll be meeting again to make cards for residents in local nursing homes and make plans to visit and deliver them. We are also planning a bake sale to raise money for the Henry Center, sponsored by the First Methodist Church, to help those in need. And our Mayor's Youth Council couldn't do what we do without the help of the City Council, so thank you for letting me share this with you all.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being with us tonight. Okay, as far as the report from the mayor, I've got more things going on this week and following week than I have had in the past week, so I'll defer those comments until then. Alderman Berry commented on the work going on at Tullahoma Village Apartments, and that agency did approve the bond referendum that would be up to $10 million for that upgrading on those facilities over at Tullahoma Village Apartments, and we're excited about an improvement in low-income housing in Tullahoma. So with that, we'll turn to our city attorney for a report.
Mr. Mayor, I have just a brief report. And it's only to expound a little bit more on what Mr. Berry and you have mentioned about the Tullahoma Village projects by the Health Educational Housing Facility Board of the city. This is a very exciting project. It was first brought to my attention by a city attorney over in Shelbyville who had worked on one with this same organization there, and indicated that Tullahoma might be another pilot project for them here in this region. And so they contacted me, and I contacted Ms. Moody, and we looked into it. They have asked the board, and the board has voted to sell $10 million worth of bonds to them, the purpose for which will be to purchase, rehabilitate, and reconstruct that facility of 89 units. But they're also going to invest another $5 million of their own private funds in this facility. This is not a public-owned facility. It's a privately owned facility. It's a government subsidized rent facility for low and moderate income people. They're going to remodel it inside and out. They're going to redo the kitchens, put all new appliances in. If people have to be replaced, they're going to either be placed in another apartment that's vacant or in a hotel, and it won't be very, very short-term replacements, not anything that lasts more than a day or at the most. So it's a really exciting project for our town. It's right next to our soccer complex in the south part of town, and I think it'll be a really good addition to our town. Also, that board voted to accept the NHC proposal to terminate their lease with the city, obtain title of that property. The pilot project is terminated, it's been fulfilled already, and they're paying 100% property taxes, and we'll convey that property to them for $100. That's what the lease provides. So it was a busy board meeting this week. All the other things that we're working on, the usual things that are relatively routine. Do y'all have any questions about anything?
Very good, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next we'll hear from our city administrator, Ms. Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. One of the things I'm excited to share with you is in the last couple of weeks, Tom Robinson, our Tullahoma Area Economic Development Director, and I sat in with Retail Strategies, Lacey Beasley, who works with Retail Strategies and assists the city in our retail recruitment, held a webinar about a new program under the State of Tennessee Economic and Community Development, where Retail Strategies is contracted by the state to provide technical assistance to communities. It would basically be a 2-year program where we would get their assistance in providing 9 weeks worth of training to entrepreneurs or small business owners that are just getting started and kind of want to learn all of the pitfalls from professionals. They'll also get assistance with setting up an online presence and some other things. But we were definitely blown away with the offering and the opportunity, and it's something that the state is providing grants to fully fund this 2 years of technical assistance, and we've put an application in. So I'm excited to share that with you. To tag on to Alderman Allmacher's comments about the Wilson Avenue widening project, we are staying, Mayor Noes and I are staying in close contact as much as possible with TDOT. You are correct. To them, this is 2 and 3 years away from construction. So it's not moving very quickly or, not as high a priority to them as things that are in their 3-year plan right now. But they are in the stage of right-of-way acquisition. They're talking with a lot of area property owners about their appraisals, about how the project will impact them. We have heard from some citizens that are getting requests to remove signage that's been in the right-of-way in some cases for decades. The city was also in that boat. Our Fraser McEwen sign is in the right-of-way, and we received a letter to remove that within 30 days. So we understand the kind of communication that's coming from the state and are trying, as much as we can, working with those property owners and communicating concerns back to TDOT. So just wanted to piggyback on that. I think that's it. Reserve the rest of the time. I know we have a full agenda tonight.
Thank you very much. At this point, we'll go to our consent agenda. And before reading the caption for the consent agenda, I will remind you that all matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so suggests or requests. In that case, they'll be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. That will be done during the portion of the meeting reserved for comments from citizens as shown on the agenda. Citizens may request that the board remove an item from the consent agenda so the discussion can be held on that item. So with that being said, the consent agenda items are as follows. Item number 21-129 are the minutes from the September 27th, 2021 regular meeting and the public hearing. Item 21-130 we are announcing a vacancy on the Tullahoma Regional Planning Commission for a 5-year term expiring on October the 26th, 2026. Item 21-131, we'll accept a $5,000 grant award from the 2021 Tennessee Agricultural Enhancement Program and approve a $5,000 local match to be used for tree planting at the Arboretum at East Lincoln, the park, or on East Park, and stormwater mitigation at Johnson Lane Recreational Complex. Item 21-132, We to approve purchase of software and authorize a master services agreement with Civic Rec in the total amount of $11,505, including a recurring annual fee of $4,725 fee for the community centers. And item number 133, August 2021, the financial summary of the general fund, that was on page 64 of your handout. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second approved from Alderman Blackwell and seconded by McGee. All in favor, vote green. And red, vote no. It's 5-0. Motion passes. Okay, under old business. This has to do with the public hearing that we heard earlier tonight. Ordinance number 1567, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Tullahoma set forth in Tullahoma Municipal Code, which is ordinance number 1392, to rezone approximately .98 acres parcel located at 510 and 512 South Washington Street from I-1, restricted manufacturing and warehousing, to C2, general commercial. I hear a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Motion from Blackwell, seconded by Perry. Green for yes, red for no.
A discussion?
Discussion?
The only thing I wanted to ask, and Alderman Berry, you weren't on the planning commission, I don't think yet when this one came. One of the things that did come up, and I just wanted to say it in a public meeting so you're aware of it, and I know Mayor Lewis is, that there are other houses on that street that are zoned I2, so you might be hearing more about that and a possible request for rezoning. I just wanted to put that out. I emailed Mary about it. She knows, of course she knows she was there, but I just wanted to make sure you were. That's it.
Very good, absolute appropriate information to have. Any further discussion? Green for yes, red for no. 5-2, 5-0, motion passes. At this time, in accordance with our previous board meeting and our ordinance in our city, which has been announced in the public newspaper, that we would conduct a public drawing of names to determine which applicant will be approved for a certificate of compliance. At this time, we will prepare the drawing, and conducting that drawing will be conducted by our city recorder, Ms. Golden. Ms. Golden, do you have are you prepared to conduct the drawing?
Yes.
Let's move on with conducting the drawing. This is in accordance with our board meeting from the last meeting, and based on its extensive counsel from our local attorney, Alcoholic Beverage Commission attorney, and MTAS attorney. We're conducting this in accordance with that advice.
Okay. Motion and a second to this?
Because I think do we have to have a motion for that?
Yes.
We will, yes. I'm just asking now, Ms. Black, prepared to do it, yes.
I'm prepared.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to proceed with the public drawing?
Motion.
We have a motion to approve the public drawing. Need a second?
I will second only for the purpose of discussion.
Okay.
I tend to agree with Mr. Patel, and I think that all of the applicants probably feel, I won't speak for you, but probably feel that from the very get-go, this was botched. This made it onto our agenda without anybody understanding how it worked. Had I not made a phone call to the ABC that afternoon, we would have approved 3 applicants and sent it to the state. I don't agree with this drawing, but I think we are in a situation, unfortunately, now, that if I understand the laws correctly, we have 20 days from the application to either approve or deny, or it's automatically approved. Is that correct?
60 days.
Is it 60 days?
Minus 2 weeks. Is it minus 2 weeks, too?
From the date when they actually apply for the
From the date that it was
To the board.
first presented to the board,
Well, all right, from the first.
which was September 13th.
Okay.
Yes.
The date first presented and not the application date? Okay.
I mean, I don't know that we can, without being arbitrary, deny them all and start over, which would reset the clock. I know that I seconded it, but I won't vote. I will vote no to, or I guess I don't have a vote, but I disagree with this.
You can withdraw your second.
Okay. Any further discussion over here?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Ripa was first.
Okay.
I was just going to say, I am in somewhat agreement with Alderman Berry on the fact that I think that this was, there wasn't much forethought, I think, not necessarily from administration, but from every bit of this in terms of the way this could have been handled. Whether or not now is the time to go back on it, I'm unsure. I think that one of the things, though, that should be considered right now, seeing as how this went, is that we should be looking at our city codes, our city ordinances, to be putting a plan into place for when we hit that next step anyway, because it will one day likely happen. And I think that there should be a process in place. I really don't like the arbitrariness of it. But there is the ticking clock that 2 applications came to us 2 weeks ago. So I'd like to hear what other of my colleagues have to say, but I do in some ways agree with Alderman Berry on that, but I don't know how we go back in an appropriate manner. Yeah, because I think that what my feeling going forward was that I wanted to make sure that we had a process in place, that, a lot of things were being discussed over here about what we wanted to see from these applications, but they're not in our code, they're not in state law. If you want to put that in there, then that's something we should be talking about moving forward. So that's my comment so far on that.
Okay.
Yes.
Allmacher.
Well, let me first start by saying that, did y'all know that one of the ways that you can be removed as an alderman is by illegal gambling? And to me, we don't have gambling in Tennessee, and if we're drawing names out of a hat, it kind of feels like we're gambling a little bit up here at this board. I personally have to go to Vegas to do that, so I'm really not comfortable with it. I do feel like, I'm going to repeat, that this was botched from the get-go. We should be on a first-come, first-served basis. I don't care for what reason people didn't make it to the front of the line. I don't care. I want to know who was there first, who had the information. Sometimes it's about just knowing the information. I mean, that's the way the world turns. And if Mr. Dameron was there first, this ought to be his certificate. If Mr. Patel was there first, this ought to be his certificate, plain and simple. I feel like this goes to a failure of the city's leadership, and I don't mean just Ms. Moody on this. I think this is a failure of us all right now that we have let it get to this point, and I'm not happy with it. I am not going to vote. I think we're setting ourselves up for a lawsuit, and that this is not mitigating risk, and I am not for gambling up here sitting in this seat on the board.
Alderman McGee.
I think what has happened is we've all had time to just really sit back and think. At our last meeting, as Alderman Blackwell said, it was so much going on, we really couldn't think which way to go. But I do agree with the gambling part. And also agree with the first come, first served basis. But, how do we go back appropriately now at this time to fix all of this? So those are my comments.
Is it not okay to say we made a mistake? I mean, and then continue to move forward and then fix it next time?
I withdraw my second.
I make a motion to grant this certificate to the person who filed their paperwork first.
We have a motion on the floor. We do not have a second.
I will second that.
You withdrew your second.
Or motion, my second.
My motion is still on the
I
floor.
withdraw the motion on hers, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, is there a second? There is no second, so that motion will fail. Okay, now you have made a motion. That motion will need a second. Would you care to restate your second? Restate your motion.
My motion is to grant the certificate of compliance with the person who filed it first, whoever that may be.
I will second that.
It has a second. We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
But the problem is that we all talked about 4 weeks ago that someone was turned away when they came to apply for it, and that is not what we are hearing happened to many other people as well, that they weren't, and that is not okay. For whatever reason, people were turned away when they were all trying to put their application. We now do not have the receipts for who showed up at what time to do what. I have seen receipts from people showing that they showed up on August 31st requesting an application and were denied applying for it, which was the day that Jay's application was put in. So to me, that isn't an acceptable reason. We don't know the timeframes. We don't know what happened. And at this point, then let's put a process in place and let's make a decision between all the applications if that's really what you guys are wanting. Because I will be voting no on this.
How much time do we have? How many days do we have left?
How many more days?
I just asked Ms. Neely that question.
I think Ms. Golden has that. Did you bring the dates?
Yeah, so it would be actually November 12th would be the 60th day, and that would be for the 2 applicants that came to the board on September 13th, which would be Mahadran, actually 3 applicants, Mahadran and his wife, Bonnie and his wife, and Jay. So those 3 have to be decided on by or prior to November 12th.
And I'm going to comment that effectively for the board, those all came to the board at the same time.
Mr. Mayor, my motion is
Heard your motion.
whoever filed first. I'm not saying who came up here and asked questions. Sometimes it's about knowing the information, and that's the way the world turns. Whoever filed first is my motion, not whoever came up here and asked first.
But don't you think the person that came up here to ask had the intentions of filing?
We can't guess as to intentions.
Yes, they did though, and that's what they shared, and that's what came to us via email. We have receipts, and I mean, I know, and I don't want to say that. So I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated right now. I think that this is opening up for much more issues. Multiple people were turned away on that day, that same day that they were coming to be filed, for whatever reason.
To be filed or to pick up?
You can file it as you're doing it, and they have been calling before. Many people have been calling before. If we are going to say, let's give it to the first person, we don't know who that should have been. So in my mind, we need to put a process in place so that we can make a determination, and we need to actually decide appropriately if we're not going to do this, lottery or whatever it is. So my point is, we don't know that information per se. That information isn't necessarily true.
Mr. Mayor, I have to disagree. We know who filed, and it's not who came up. And I understand that there may have been some wrong information given. Let me tell, just quick, if I could. First time I went to go sit for the bar exam, I was given some wrong information. And they said this deadline was this day, but it was really this day. So I missed the deadline by about 12 hours. Do you know what they told me? Sorry about your luck, apply in 6 months. It's whoever filed, had the information, and got it there when it's supposed to be there. Even if somebody tells you something wrong, because ultimately the information is out there, and not everybody here is going to always give the right answer. But the information is out there from the state, even. My motion is still on the table. Whoever filed first is who this should be given.
Any further discussion?
how would we determine the criteria to make a decision? Will we do that together? Will we have, because I feel that a lottery is arbitrary. I feel that we have the authority to define a set of criteria and make approve or deny based off criteria that we have defined, as long as we're able to come to a decision that anybody can rationally come to. So if I was to withdraw my second, how do we define the criterion that we will use to pick one of these three?
Well, I think to my question, which is more of a question for, I think, Mr. Worsham, and your question might be as well, is at this point, because we have our codes, what we're supposed to be following, we have our state law, which we're supposed to be following, and some of the conversations that were happening did not fall within those codes or state law. So at this point, when we are talking about changing it, as this is happening, I don't know if we're allowed to do that. I think that's a question for Mr. Worsham.
While he's walking up, I don't believe that we're changing anything. I think that our ordinances give us the ability to make a rational decision on our own. The guidelines that the state gives is just what's in the application. Is that not correct? And then we make the decision?
We are the victims of a flawed state law, in my opinion, because the state law does not contemplate a situation where a town retains its limit on the number of liquor stores you can have based upon population. It only allows us to approve an application for a certificate of good moral character, which then goes to the state Alcoholic Beverage Commission. And if we sent 12 of them up there, they would approve 12. And they send 12 down here, and we would have to select one of those 12 in order to comply with our local ordinance. So if they placed us in a dilemma that's very difficult to resolve. We thought about the various different things that we could do, and we presented them to you in a report that we can either amend our code of ordinances to take away any limits on population limits for liquor stores, or to increase the number of liquor stores available under our population, or to do the lottery. And the board at the last meeting discussed and approved the lottery method. Although in my report, and as I said before, some people think that is a lottery and might be illegal, and that's certainly a point that Ms. Allmacher has raised that I think is a valid point. It might be. It has never been adjudicated to be that. Other communities have employed the lottery, but it's never been tested in court. So we don't know the answer to that. Ms. Allmacher knows as well as any lawyer that any law is valid until challenged by and overturned by a court, and that hadn't happened yet. But we do have an opportunity, since we have till November the 12th, to meet, maybe have a study session. I've suggested this to Ms. Moody, and discuss this matter further. Depending on how you all move tonight, if you move not to move forward with the drawing tonight and enact some other motion that's approved in some other way. But I definitely think that we are going to have to select from those people that are qualified and file the applications the one that we think is the best. If they're all suited, there we go. We've got that dilemma. We're going to have to make a decision, and I really don't know what the decision could be. Because if they're all qualified people, and I haven't seen the reports as to which they are, but I assume that the ones that have applied are qualified now. I think maybe we might get more guidance from maybe the ABC or something like that if we had more time to do it. But I definitely think that we don't want to preclude anybody the opportunity to be considered if they follow the proper protocol.
Hey, Alderman Barry, you said if you withdrew your motion.
What would we, I have one question first.
Let me suggest that I think that in fairness to us and to these applicants, that this does deserve some more study. Okay. And I would like to see us postpone any action on this tonight until tonight, with all the attendance that we have, I'd like to have a study session with all parties contained. So we see if we can come to that criteria that you're searching for to make a decision. And with this attorney's suggestion, I don't know how we can do that without it being arbitrary myself. So how do you define that? But I think we owe it to ourselves to have that study session tonight.
I think this might help as well with what I think you're thinking about. I think as those are happening, I think that if we set a special called meeting to have a discussion over it, I think we have 10 days, is that correct? To try to make this as fast as humanly possible. And I think we should continue to take applications if that's something that we wanted to do. I personally would at this point. After hearing that other people were turned away, or at least that we should be discussing how this happened, why this happened, and how we can move forward so that it doesn't happen again. I agree. I think that, we have in our codes, I was comfortable, ready, and willing to vote last time, but I did want to see equal opportunity happen, and I'm glad that we, thought about doing the lottery, but I think that if we want to, hearing now that there are other people who were turned away, I think we need to figure out whether or not, why would we preclude people from putting in applications if they didn't want to?
If we were going to do the drawing tonight, were all 3 names going in?
2,
Only 2.
How are we eliminating one?
the staff selected one of
So the
themselves.
staff can select which ones don't go, but the Board of Mayor and
The board-
Aldermen
the board
cannot?
gave-
I made a motion to
The
have
board
last
gave
time
them
all
that
3.
authority.
Well, I mean, but I'm kind of, your question was, or I feel your statement was that we can't eliminate, but staff can?
But we approved that
The board gave them that authority by resolution.
Remember,
What criteria did you use to eliminate?
I don't have the exact wording of the motion, but what I recall of that motion is we were directed to only select 2 names. And then one was eliminated based on 2 criteria. First, we did the order that they were received. And we also used the information that we had from the state, which said if they had both Mahajan and Rita Patel's application and Bonnie and his wife's application, that they would consider them both as having interest in one liquor store already, and that they could only have one additional liquor store between them.
So why can't we use that same, that's what I said last meeting and was told I was being culturally inappropriate.
that's not what I said. At all.
Why can you use that criteria, but we, the board, that's what I'm getting at. I know how
I'm
you-
sorry.
I know how you got your authority to make that decision, but what I'm asking is why can they have criteria to do it, but we can't, is what I'm asking.
The other part of that motion was approving a method for selecting. And if I remember, it was a 5-2 vote to approve this lottery method. So the discussion was about this exact point. Do you want to consider first in? Do you want to consider a drawing? So I think that, to the mayor's point, I think it sounds like the board needs to have the study session and further discuss a method, because I think that one was selected last meeting, but it doesn't sound like you're now comfortable with that method. And in light of an appeal that was just made, I've never met this man, I've never heard his appeal before, did not know that happened to him. I think that those are valid reasons to discuss what method we're going to use.
I think it would be fair to include if we can verify what was said. I'm not saying that but if that's verifiable, I think that my personal opinion, I will withdraw my motion, but I won't agree to include open back up the applications. But if we had somebody who was told no, when others were told yes, that's not.
And that's what I was saying.
That's not fair. That's not fair.
And that's what I was saying. The other Patel family was told no. They have actual receipts that I shared with everybody here. On August 31st, when they came to paying their trash bill, they were turned away. So that's why that was moved to 2 weeks later, because they would have been on that agenda item the same night that Jay's was going to be on the agenda item too. They both would have been on the agenda, and we would have had to make a decision on that day between those. But because they were turned away on August 31st, when they were paying their trash bill, which they have receipts for, and that has been corroborated by the person.
But they were on our agenda, so those
The
two-
second
those
time,
two
the
were
second
fixed.
time, but I wanted to explain
Yeah,
that, because that was a
that's-
question that came up from the applicants, that was why it was pushed the first time.
Mr. Mayor, I still am going to go back to the point, there is no way we are going to be able to open this back up, make this a fair process. This is a failure. I mean, just plain and simple, this is a failure from up front, this is a failure of our leadership, this is a failure of to not have that information readily available. However, even with limited information, I don't know that Mr. Dameron said, here's you a checkbox, make sure you do X, Y, and Z and don't mess it up, and make sure you I don't know that he was given that information. He probably had to figure it out himself. And he had to know when it was due, when the census had come out, when the information was readily available, and he acted upon that. It would be completely arbitrary and capricious, and also a smack in any candidate's face who came up here, knew what to do, pulled the information, checked all the right boxes, submitted it first, and then we continue to leave this open or draw names out of a hat. I could care less what the other reasons are as to why or who said what. It is first come, first served, regardless of who knew what information. That's the only fair way we can do this. My motion still stands if somebody wants to.
I'd like to hear from Mr. Alderman McGee.
But he came up here with intentions, and he came to the place where he thought he could get the right answer. So we can't really hold that against him. I don't think.
Agreed.
No, we should hold it against our administration. And that's a failure for all of us.
I'm going to leave my second and call the question.
Say it again.
I'm going to leave my second and call the question.
Restate your motion.
My motion is that whoever filed their paperwork first should receive the certificate of compliance.
And that's your second.
Yep.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Question's been called. We're green for yes and red for no. Motion fails 3-2. Excuse me, that motion is tied 3-3.
No, it's fails, 3-2.
3-2, so it's clear on that. The motion fails.
I knew how that was going to
Okay,
go.
we have a motion. We have a plan. We have approved by our board and was presented in a public newspaper that we will conduct a drawing tonight.
That motion already failed.
Yes, yeah, that already failed. Well, it actually died because there wasn't a
But
second,
a
right?
dead
Yeah.
motion still can't be brought back.
So I'd like to make a motion to postpone for a study session to discuss how to move forward, because is that what I'm supposed to be asking right now in terms of how to board this?
Study
You
session
know,
when?
let me just make a comment. It's a comment that when our board makes decisions, passes resolutions, we put things in the newspaper that we are going to take an action. I feel this board has an obligation to follow through with the actions that they take. Unless we continue to go back and rehash and go over and over and over things, when our board does not act on the motions that we pass, I think we're doing a disservice to ourselves and to the citizens. That's my comment.
Is it true then that because I did not get on a second on the motion, we can't move on this anyway tonight? Is that correct?
What did
I made a motion to move forward with the,
The motion dies for lack of a second.
yes, so regardless, we can't make a motion. That's what I was trying to make that
Okay.
point.
We move on. The motion died. We now have certificates of compliance.
So we don't, I thought okay, I'm confused again.
You made a motion for a postpone for a study session
I did make.
tonight?
Not tonight. I did make a motion so that we could at least continue the discussion at some point.
But we never
Because-
got a second.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
I would like to amend that motion, and when we have that study session, I would like to have somebody from MTAS or ABC, somebody outside of our circle in that room to answer these questions.
Attorney Moore.
I'd like to just make a comment, if I could, about this. You all voted on and approved a method at the last meeting to conduct this drawing tonight. In order to rescind that action, a motion needs to be made by someone who voted in the majority to reconsider that matter first.
He's right.
Then you rescind it. Then you can make a motion to continue this issue until a later time, and in the interim can have a study session before you bring it up at another regular board meeting. The study session will be a public session at which you can discuss all these matters.
And
But
does the
you've
second-
already voted to do this. In order to rescind it, somebody who voted in the majority at that time has got to make a motion to rescind it, and if that's the second, then it will be rescinded. Then you can either discuss whether or not you want to bring this up at the study session or continue this issue to a later meeting or whatever.
Does the second have to be from within the
I
majority?
don't believe so. I think just the movement has to be.
Alderman Blackburn, you were in the majority.
I'll make a motion to rescind to reconsider via a study session. Does that, at the next board meeting, following the next board meeting? Or is that too long, or should we be doing a special call?
Make a motion to reconsider this whole issue
Okay.
at the next regular board meeting.
Okay.
And that's fine, and then you can vote to have a study session between now and then.
Okay.
Okay.
That.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to rescind the resolution from last time, and to have it reconsidered at the next board meeting with a study session following it. Right?
Study session needs to be before.
Prior, that's right, it has to legally
It has to be prior.
That's right, study session before.
Rescind
Should that be
the
two separate?
motion.
Just, you can have the study session at any time between now and the next meeting if you move to and approve
Yes.
reconsidering this at the next board meeting.
Yes.
Or you could have the study session immediately prior to that board meeting if you wanted to, whichever you prefer. But the study session should precede the meeting at which you're going to reconsider this, or we're wasting our time having the study session.
I would prefer to have it before that evening. So if that gives us some
Set a
time.
date.
So, do we have to have 10 days from now to be able to put it in the papers, is that correct?
Can we just make a motion to reconsider, handle that, and then ask staff to set us separately?
That's a better way.
Okay, let's do
Separately
it that
ask
way.
staff to
Yes.
handle
Motion to
all that.
reconsider with staff making a recommendation on study session.
Have a motion
I second.
and a second. Any further discussion?
Well, yeah.
I just want to be fair across the board with everybody. So that's,
I'm sorry to the applicants.
Yes.
I do
Yes, I apologize
but-
to all the applicants.
Yeah.
The motion to rescind. Vote green for yes, red for no. And that motion passes 5-0. Okay. With that, it seems that there are some items on the old business that are moot at this point.
Do we just call them out and not get a motion, or
Motion to
How do we
remove.
do that?
Can we make a motion
just
to
remove it
remove
from the
those
agenda?
items?
I didn't understand that question, Ms. Owen.
Can we just make a motion to remove those items?
We have a motion for
table to the next meeting or?
all of the certificates of compliance.
Yeah, oh, yes. Just continue, just make a motion to continue those to the next meeting as well.
Okay, that will be item number
Yeah.
21-116, 21-135, 21-136, and item number
21-137.
21-137.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to postpone those items until the next board meeting.
Is it continue or postpone? I'll second whichever one it's supposed to be.
There's no continue. You can table as this meeting, postpone is next meeting.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Postpone to the next meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Vote green for yes and red for no. Motion passes 5-0.
All right, hold on one second. I have to clear the board.
Okay.
Okay, the motion is to postpone for certificate of compliance till next meeting.
That motion passes 5-0. Okay. We're making negative progress tonight.
I picked a good meeting.
And I was like, welcome to the show.
There being no other old business, we'll move on to new business. First item under new business is an ordinance number 1568, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Tullahoma, set forth in the Tullahoma Municipal Code, which is ordinance number 1392, to rezone approximately .58 acres located at 702 South Atlantic Street from C2 General Commercial to C3 General Neighborhood Commercial District.
Motion to approve.
Passage on first of two readings.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Very second, Mayor Blackburn. Any discussion? Green for yes, red for no. Motion passes 5-0. Under new business, further new business, resolution number 1886. An initial resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $15 million of general obligation school bonds for the city of Tullahoma. Those details are on page 124 of your packet. I have a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion from Blackwell, seconded by McGee. Any discussion?
Yeah. I've been so back and forth on this. The state of Tennessee really limits what can be brought to a referendum vote, and I think that's probably a good cause, because we're elected to make decisions. But one of the exceptions, as in this resolution here, is on general obligation bonds. And two ways that can happen is, one is the board can voluntarily elect to go to a referendum, or the residents, within 20 days of it being posted in the paper, can get 10% of the registered voters to sign a petition asking for a referendum vote. I would like to ask the board to voluntarily elect to have a referendum on this matter.
Would we have the referendum during the primary of the county? Is that?
I don't know when that happens, probably
It's April.
next election.
It's April of 2022, I believe, the primary takes place. And that way, there'd be no extra added costs to conduct a referendum election.
The primary elections are conducted by each of the political parties, not a general election. It'd have to be postponed to a general election. And you've got a time frame as to when you have to advertise that till when you could have it. And I don't know what the answer to that is, but it would not be at a primary. It's got to be at a general election.
August.
So it has to be an August election or a November election.
Well, it might be that far till August of next year, yes.
I want to mention the fact that what Mr. McAnulty told us, how we're at a crucial timing to purchase the bonds with the interest rates that they are at, if I'm correct, and I don't want to see us have a higher rate. I think it's not a fiscally good idea for us to do that. I also have been going down this rabbit hole of trying to understand the history of our sales tax sinking fund as it relates to our school board and how it came into fruition, and I I'm trying to find out, Mrs. Wilson and I were talking about this, I'm not quite sure if it is, but word on the street was that it was actually voted on as a referendum. So to specifically allocate funding for capital projects for our school board, exactly like this. And to me, that means the citizens have already made that decision.
I would still ask the board. I've done a lot of a lot of talking to folks, and it's just so, to me, this is a big ticket item that lasts 20, 30 years, potentially, and I feel that this is one, and the state feels enough to make it an exception, that these are the kind of items that residents should have the opportunity to vote on themselves. Again, I don't like the referendums in general, because that's our job, but this, I think, so.
Well, I have a question. So you said, I'm sorry, you said that, I realize that it's the party's primaries. However, if you have a special set referendum, I don't see why there's any reason why we couldn't hold that on the same day. And
Well, I don't know about that. I can't answer that question.
Right.
You might just say in your motion at the earliest possible time or something like that, so we
Okay.
could find that out. I don't know. Ordinarily, when you have a primary election, you don't have a general election. But maybe you could have a special election for a referendum. I just don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry.
Yes.
This is not the fiscally responsible thing to do.
No.
I have
Yes, or maybe McGee.
a question to the people that you talk to. Do they or did they have children to attend FARA?
Yes, I spent time in that neighborhood there, and I don't just hang out in one area.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
I will ask to postpone, or let you.
Yeah, I was.
Okay, wait, we have a motion and we have a second. And let's dispense with that motion.
I can't, well, you can't dispense with that. I can't postpone it after we vote on it. But
I did have another comment. They just made it very clear as to why this was needed. First and foremost is safety. We're living in a world that is just crazy. There is no protection for the kids at FARA if an intruder were to come in there. And then the air. It's the filtration system is not good for the kids. So that's why I was wondering who you spoke to.
the same argument was made at West, and yet it's still
West
there
wasn't
with
nowhere near
daycare
as
and
open as
special ed, and
FARA school is.
I think I'd like to call the question.
I would like to make a motion.
We have a hand up before you call the question.
So I wanted to just bring this up because I made this comment in a study session, so the general public did not get to hear it. My issue is not with building a new school, and not necessarily that I dislike the location. Here's the thing I'm thinking of. We have, in that school district, I think it's great that people live within a mile. I think they said 89–90% of the students live within a mile of that school district that go to that school. Same thing with Bel Air. 84%, I think. It's a little bit less, because if you go towards, I'd say the north side of town, over by Ledford Mill, those students are zoned for Bel Air, and they have about a 6-mile trek. It's not within walking distance. And the same thing over on the north side of town, across the railroad tracks, out by Schmead, out that way, where there's a lot of new subdivisions going in on those north sides of town. My thing is, if we're looking at our 2040 comprehensive growth plan, and you already have a school, Bel Air, and so if we, on this side of town, and we already have Robert E. Lee and East Lincoln on that side of town, if we built a school on the north side of town to absorb some of that overflow from Robert E. Lee and from Bel Air, those students, it would then take some of the population out of Bel Air to be able to absorb those students that live in that congregated area. Same thing in Robert E. Lee. We could take, and so my thing is a location. I love the community schools, and I do think that we should continue on the trend with the community schools. However, they're only community schools if you live in those pockets of the community. People out in Ledford Mill and people out on the north side of town don't have necessarily a community school, and that is where the growth is happening. So I like the idea of a referendum because I think that it puts pressure on the school systems to have public meetings and get input and involvement from not just us as the board, but from parents and teachers and citizens that are going to be paying for this.
Okay, the question has been called.
I would like to make a motion.
call the
My
question.
motion to postpone precedes that. I'd like to make a motion to postpone until the next meeting when we have our full board here to make that decision on a $15 million bond issue.
I second.
Motion second. Any discussion on the motion to postpone?
We've had 3 meetings as of now. We have an independently elected school board that we do not manage, that they themselves have the decision-making powers and the expertise that none of us here have on our students. They have open meetings every time. Their meetings they have school board meetings, they have to go through open meeting laws just like we do. In my mind, I have everything I need to make this decision tonight. I think other people do as well, and I hope that you all vote yes to not postpone. So vote no to postpone, vote yes to approve.
We have a motion to postpone. Any further discussion?
They are independent, and I respect that. I respect that. But it is us who is voting on this money, and it is us who will ultimately...
The citizens already have.
It will ultimately be responsible to people coming and talking. I don't see an issue with saying, hey, citizens. Well, that's not the motion, so the motion I have is to postpone until next meeting with the full board.
Postpone. We have a motion and a second. All the questions, green for yes and red for no. Motion fails 3-2.
So, I'd call question on the original motion.
Okay, we have a question to Resolution 1886. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that?
No, I think I called.
Green for yes,
Wait,
red for no.
wait.
We're voting on
The original.
The original motion is Resolution 1886. That motion passes 4-1. And there is a companion resolution. And this companion resolution simply deals with how the bonds would be issued. And that in detail starts on page 127 of your packet and goes for some extended terms there on how the bonds could be issued. So I have a motion on 1887.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve. Here, second.
second.
Second from McGee. Any discussion on the approval process?
One quick question. To get the petition, will citizens come to you for that? To you for that? Where will they pick up a petition to do that?
Coffee
They have
County.
to create that petition themselves.
They would just create a petition and take it around to do? Okay.
Okay, we have 1887. Any further discussion? Or green for yes, red for no? That's approved 3-2. Okay. Moving on to item number 21-138, to confirm with Parks and Recreation Director appointment as recommended by the City Administrator. I'd like to recognize the City Administrator for a recommendation.
Good evening, thank you. Today I have the extreme privilege to bring forward a recommendation for Tullahoma's next Director of Parks and Recreation. Our Tullahoma Parks and Recreation Department operates 2 community centers with indoor and outdoor pools, oversees maintenance and programming of the Rock Creek Greenway, and 10 city parks. The department consists of about 10 full-time, year-round positions and up to 100 part-time and seasonal staff. This department provides essential services that are contributing directly to the health and quality of life for every Tullahoma resident. I really believe our park system has been a great source of community pride, and I expect that the next director will build upon a fantastic foundation that's already here. First and foremost tonight, I wanted to commend the men and women of the department, and specifically J.P. Kraft, Lyle Russell, and Sheila Rico, each of whom I feel have gone above and beyond their regular duties to do anything and everything that's been necessary to continue operations in the face of many ongoing challenges. These three will be an invaluable resource to work with the next director and set a strategic vision for the future of the department. In the months ahead, we will have the benefit of seeing the full prioritized list of recommendations from our Think Tullahoma 2040 plan, and hopefully a master parks plan for the department. I expect the director to work with key staff members to compete for grants in a way that I feel like have not fully realized our potential there, and to implement capital projects as identified in the 5-year capital plan that's currently being developed. Next, I just want to quickly review the steps. I know we just had a fire chief hiring, so you know the process, but for the public's benefit, as city administrator, my role includes the responsibility for selecting those who will serve in key leadership positions. This is a decision that is ultimately mine, but I've not done it alone. I've relied upon a multi-step evaluation process, and in each part, I receive candid feedback from others on each of the finalists for the position, and then all of that feedback is incorporated into my recommendation. This recruitment was done in 3 parts. First, I relied upon expertise provided by Municipal Technical Advisory Services, UT-MTAS. Human Resource Consultant John Grubbs assisted us, and our management consultant that you all know, Hannah Rogers. They helped in reviewing the job applicants and putting together an assessment panel to evaluate the 3 final candidates on their skills and what they call critical competencies for the role. Second, the candidates were evaluated by a community panel, each of whom on the panel represented a different perspective and a key community partnership that someone in the director's role would be working with. And third, all candidates participated in one-on-one interviews with me, and then based upon all of that feedback from this recruitment process and subsequent work, with the interim director, I finalized my recommendation tonight. So now I recommend to you Dave Anderson for appointment to Director of Parks and Recreation. During the review process, he demonstrated excellent preparedness for the director's role. Most significantly, he demonstrated excellent communication skills, and he's been involved in all aspects of operations, from running concessions to developing programming, and successfully writing and handling administration of grant awards, including TDOT grants that I thought was huge for us. Each contact I made, checking references for him, they all use very similar words to describe him, most frequently starting with his infectious, positive energy and clear passion for the work, especially working with youth. Mr. Anderson has grown up around Parks and Recreation his whole life. His own father was a parks director, and he really inspired him to follow in his footsteps. Throughout his career and each position he's held, he sought out a mentor and used the position to learn a new aspect of operations. In both his current position with the City of Gatlinburg and his past work with the City of Pigeon Forge, he's been credited with successfully building a positive work environment and strong partnerships. One example that was given was that he was really the catalyst behind recently saving the baseball leagues in the City of Pigeon Forge and Sevierville, both of which were seeing continued dwindling participation in their programs, and he successfully led a joint effort for the 2 cities to combine their leagues, and very quickly in a few years has built what was 3 teams up to 10 teams. Several people mentioned that to me as a success. Mr. Anderson has been actively involved with Tennessee Parks and Recreation Association for many years. He will continue by next week at their annual meeting being installed as president of the association for the 2021-22 year. And I anticipate, based upon his experience, his network of peers throughout the state, Mr. Anderson's well prepared to lead our parks team and become a valued member of our Tullahoma community. I believe he'll work quickly to assess and learn about our facilities and parks, work with the Sports Council in order to create a vision for the next 1 to 5 years, and I believe he'll be one who will lead collaboratively when working both inside the department and with outside. And then I'm most excited to see how he's going to use his knowledge, experience, ambition, and high energy to inspire our team and contribute to the continued success of the Parks and Recreation Department. So I'm truly excited to introduce Mr. Anderson tonight, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
And we'll wait, we'll let you take your vote, or we can
We
speak
would,
with you now.
before we ask you to come to the podium, we will entertain a motion to approve Ms. Moody's recommendation.
Move to approve.
Who have a second? Have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Barry. Any discussion?
I do have a question.
Okay.
Was the other candidate, speaking of our interim that was currently in place, given an opportunity to be mentored or coached to meet the qualifications that you were looking for?
I believe that he was, yes.
I have questions as well. You go back and you talk about the 3 candidates. You're referring back to the original application period, correct?
Yes, this process was conducted in April.
Okay. And during the original application, this is just for, I want to get this on the record so that the public at home watching understands what has happened here. And this is of no consequence to you, nothing against you. I'm sure you're fabulous. And I hear wonderful things. So here's what I would like to know. What exactly did Mr. Kraft fail to meet as far as your expectations, and why the change? Because it was my understanding that, I'm sorry, what's his name again? Mr.
Anderson.
Anderson, excuse me. Mr. Anderson turned down the position 6 months ago, or right at 5 months ago. 5 months, 2 weeks. We'll say this. JP has led this position for 6 months out of the past 12, considering the interim position whenever Kurt was on leave during December of last year, plus the last 5 months. So 6 months out of the last 12, never been written up, not a hitch. I mean, as far as I know, he's done everything you've asked of him. Fully cooperated, held the soapbox derby, ran Splash Island throughout the summer months, working 7 days a week, directed, planned, and hosted the 4th of July event, the biggest one the city's ever held, running the parks, the Greenway, the staff, and the centers. He organized and hosted the Joe Moon dedication, finished the Silver Street Park development, helped restore the basketball courts, worked to develop items and complete the 5-year capital improvement plan, also wrote grants, and all this down to 2 full-time positions, because you never actually hired his position, so he was doing his old job plus this director's job. So what exactly did he fail to do in order to meet your standard?
So Mayor, I'll ask you, would you like me to review the process again? Because what I was directed to do was to bring forward the best, most qualified candidate for the position. I've reviewed with you tonight exactly the strengths of this candidate and the process that was used, which is my responsibility according to our municipal code. I define the process, I bring you a candidate. It is your job to either approve or deny that recommendation, but you do not get to substitute my recommendation for your own.
I have one more comment, Mr. Mayor, please.
Actually, I would like a chance.
Yes.
Are we going? If that's
Yeah,
okay?
sure.
You know what's interesting is I've been, for those who don't know, I produce events and work with Parks and Recreation departments often. And I love JP. Has nothing to do with this at all. But I was having a hard time agonizing over what was going on. I was talking to my friend who works in park recreation at a city that I'm not going to mention because people here. So one of the things she told me was how much in upheaval the departments would be when there was turnover within the mayor's office, because they are political appointments. They would have a new person at the whim of a new mayor. The people under the department, that sometimes the person wouldn't have budgeting experience, they wouldn't be able to do the work that they could do, and they didn't feel supported. I think that one of the things that she made me realize is how grateful I am for our form of government, where it takes out political appointments, it's a confirmation process, and it makes sure that it is fair. And so I'm looking forward to working with you, Mr. Anderson. There's a project on October 30th that I will loop you in once you are voted in, so.
Two projects. Two.
Okay, we have a recommendation from the city
Yes, well,
administrator.
I consider them one.
You have another comment?
I do, real quick. The charter lays out how this works. You are tasked, and you have a contract with this as well that lays out how this works. You are to make a recommendation to us. We, like you said, we either approve or deny. We don't put in our own people. How I look at it from being in upper management before, my employee is the person directly under me. And it's impossible for me to hold them accountable for their position if I am constantly making decisions for them. And that's how I look at this, is it is your staff. You are responsible for what happens in the Parks and Rec Department. He is responsible for the people under him. And if we take that away from you, we're not in a position to hire. I don't believe the board has the authority to hire or fire. We can approve hires, right? We can't discipline either. I don't believe that we can. So we're assuming responsibility for something that we, by charter and by law, cannot do. And then we've taken away any ability for us to hold you accountable for that department. And that's kind of we had this at the comm center. And my statement to him was, it's your ship, it's your decision. You know, it either floats or sinks, that's on you. We hired you to make the choice. If down the road we disagree with it, then we'll do something different.
Okay, I'll go after Jenna.
So there was one more point to this. I think this is setting a very dangerous precedent, and that's not my words, and I'm not going to say whose they are, but I had another employee message me today and say, personally, and this is a quote, I think this is setting a dangerous precedent. Spend the better part of your life working diligently for the city, advancing through your career field, working toward an end goal, only to be utilized when you're needed, then discarded. I think that the number one retainer for people who are vested and employees that are vested is if they feel like we value them and their presence. When you have somebody that spends 16 years of their career, never have gotten a write-up, and do a fabulous job, if I must say so, over the past 6 months. And again, this is nothing against you. Your credentials are fabulous. But what precedent are we setting even for Mr. Anderson, who's coming in as an outsider? Are we going to value him like we value JP? Is he going to have a career here, or is it just going to be until we decide somebody better is going to come along? The number one best retainer is employee morale. And thinking about our lawsuits, our hostile work environment lawsuits, all of the different things that have gone on, the turnover that we've had, we need to be in risk mitigation mode. And we need to be evaluating the leadership of our city administrator at this point. I have to go on record as saying I think this is a terrible, terrible decision. And again, it is not about the choice. It's about the way that we have done Mr. Kraft.
We have a okay.
I only asked the question because that's part of what directors do in collaboration with HR. So that's why I asked the question that I asked. It has nothing to do with Mr. Anderson. I'm just still trying to learn the process of everything, so that's the only reason why I asked that question.
City administrators brought the recommendation. I'll call a question. Green for approve the recommendation, red for not approving. Recommendation passes 4-1. Recommendation. Mr. Anderson, would you care to speak through your board?
Sure thing.
And welcome.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you, I appreciate it. Mr. Mayor and board, thank you so much, and I appreciate the trust that you have given me for leading the city of Tullahoma in the Parks and Recreation Department. Mr. Allmacher, I understand where you're coming from. I was in Gatlinburg for 16 years. Not one discipline issue, not one wrongdoing, nothing. Did a great job. Every evaluation was spotless, and I was turned down for the director job. Just, it ended up being a political move, and I don't agree with that either. What I am going to do is give my very best to the city of Tullahoma, to the citizens of Tullahoma. That's my goal. My goal is to provide the best Parks and Recreation Department in Middle Tennessee. My goal is to improve on the Sports Council, to improve the community centers, to improve our greenways, to improve our existing structures, okay? I really appreciate the fact that you guys have entrusted this with me, and I can't wait to get started, and I hope that we can work together in the coming months. And I'm just very excited for this move and to be starting with you all. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you and welcome. Welcome. I understand that you are going to be commuting for a short period of time. We're
Correct.
looking forward to having you here on a very full-time basis.
Absolutely, and that's right. And starting as soon as I get here, I'm going to be looking for a place to stay.
Very
for
good.
sure.
And again, thank you and welcome to our community.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Moody. With that, there being no further new business, we will adjourn the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and we'll move directly into the Beer Board. Are there any public comments coming for the Beer Board? Seeing no public comments, we'll move into the consent agenda. The only thing on the consent agenda is the minutes from the September 27th Beer Board meeting. Motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
And Blackwell McGee. All in favor? Green. And the consent agenda passes 5-0. There being no other old business and there being no other new business, the Beer Board will be adjourned.